My Bible reading is going to be taken from the book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 1 to 14. Verse 1 says, "In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream, and visions passed through his mind as he was laying in bed. He wrote down the substance of his dream." Verse 2 says, "Daniel said, in my vision at night I looked, and there before me were the four winds of heaven churning up the great sea." Verse 3 says, "Four great beasts, each different from the others, came up out of the sea." Verse 4 says, "The first was like a lion, and it had wings of an eagle. I watched until its wings were torn off, and it was lifted from the ground so that it stood on 2 feet, like a human being, and the mind of a human was given to it. And there before me was the second beast, which looked like a bear. It was raised up on one of its sides, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, 'Get up and eat your fill of flesh.' After that I looked, and there before me was another beast, and one that looked like a leopard, and on its back it had 4 wings like those of a bird. This beast had 4 different heads, and it was given authority to rule." Verse 7 says, "After that, in my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was the 4th beast, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all other former beasts. It had 10 horns." Verse 8 says, "While I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a human being, and mouth that spoke boastfully." Verse 9 says, "As I looked, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was as white as snow. The hair of his head was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were all ablaze." Verse 10 says, "A river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him. Thousands upon him attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened." Verse 11 says, "Then I continued to watch because of the boastful words the horn was speaking. I kept looking until the beast was slain, and its body destroyed and thrown into the blazing fire." Verse 12 says, "The other beasts had been stripped of their authority, but were allowed to live for a period of time." Verse 13 says, "In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence." Verse 14 says, "He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations and peoples of every language worshipped him. His dominion and is everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed." That is the end of my Bible reading.